Hello and welcome to Spartan Sports Center, coming to you live from the David E. Anderson Gymnasium here on the beautiful Trinity Western campus in Langley, BC. My name is Julie Ratzlaff. I'm the Associate Director of Athletics here at Trinity Western University, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. Just to give you a little background on my experience with Trinity Western, I started out as a student. I played on the women's basketball team here, then stayed on and worked in the athletics department as an intern for a year. Worked full-time after that, became the athletic event manager, and 24 years later, here I am hosting the show. So thank you so much for joining us today for the 12th annual Complete Champions virtual reception. We're just so happy to have you here, even though it's virtual this year. Normally, we'd love to be at the Langley Event Center banquet hall with all of you 350 of us mixing and mingling and enjoying personal conversations. Unfortunately, we can't do that this year. But I'm actually maybe even more excited because thanks to technology, we can have way more people than we could ever even fit in that banquet hall participating in our biggest fundraiser of the year. So thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for joining us wherever you are all over the world. And we would love to know where in the world you are tuning in from. So type in the chat your name and where you're tuning in from. Maybe let us know if you're an alum, and we'll do a few shout outs later on in the show. But speaking of the show, let's get things rolling. I'd love to introduce to you our first guest today. Coming to you from his home is Trinity Western University President, Dr. Mark Husbands. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Husbands. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Julie. How are you?
I'm doing well. The rain has stopped, the sun has come out, and it's a beautiful day here in Langley.
Good. Well, let me bring some greetings. As you know, as president of Trinity Western University, it's a privilege to be part of you for this 2020 Complete Champions corporate reception. Each of you know how much COVID-19 has upended the lives of your families, companies, and organizations. Today's event is a witness in part to the tireless efforts and dedication and teamwork of the Trinity Western University staff, faculty, and the Spartan Foundation. And I invite everyone joining me to commend the Spartan Foundation for being so agile and innovative in the midst of the challenge and constraints of COVID-19. I'm grateful that each of you has chosen to be part of this event. As president of Trinity, I have the privilege to witness the stunning development and growth that happens in the lives of our Spartan athletes. There are many worthy causes that each of you could support. And I commend this opportunity to invest in the work of Trinity Western University by offering your direct support to the Spartan Foundation, which will impact student athletes. I was asked by Julie and others to offer you just a brief update on what has happened to Trinity since the onset of COVID. Back in March, when the reality of COVID-19 began to settle in, we effectively transitioned from being a largely traditional residential face-to-face university into a hybrid online delivery model of education. And that came with a host of challenges and uncertainties. Even before the spring semester drew to a close, we engaged in a significant process of financial modeling where we projected a loss to the university of between $15 to $30 million. And in an effort to build confidence in the minds and hearts of Trinity students, and to help them see that we had their backs, we made a bold promise. And the promise took this form: the world has changed, but your future hasn't. And this is where, for example, the Complete Champion approach, and you'll hear more about that today, why this approach is so valuable. Because we had built the athletic program on a foundation that was larger than simply competition alone, we were able to honestly say to each Spartan athlete that returning to Trinity Western this fall would be worth it. Because of the teamwork this summer, work that required and benefited from the tremendous leadership and character of people like Jeff Gamache and all of our coaches, the Trinity Western University has received the highest enrollment in its 58-year history. Last year at this time, we had 4,476 students enrolled. This year, in the midst of a global pandemic, we have 4,774 students. This is an overall increase of 6.7% in enrollment. Among our graduate programs, enrollment has increased 35%. And at the same time, life for students is very different, and athletes are impacted in significant ways. Your participation in this event, your financial support, will be a tremendous encouragement to our athletes. And I'm thrilled that you've logged into this virtual Complete Champion corporate reception. And I've been invited to pray for our time together. So if you don't mind, I invite you to join me in prayer. Dear holy and gracious Lord, we thank you for this day. We're grateful that you woke us up this morning and that you have provided for us. You have given us friends, colleagues, meaningful work, a safe and secure country, and brothers and sisters in Christ who know us, who care for us, and spur us on to greater faithfulness. We humbly ask that your Spirit would be present with each person and family watching today. We thank you for all the sponsors of this event. Without their commitment to Trinity Western, the Spartan Foundation, and Spartan Athletics, this event would not have come about. May you be with everyone who speaks and shares their testimony. May you open our hearts to hear all that is said. Help us listen well, to learn, and to consider ways that each of us might be a blessing to all Trinity Western University's Spartan athletes. We're amazed by the faithfulness of Spartan coaches, and we ask that you would continue to provide them with the strength, humor, wisdom, and grace to care for, strengthen, and challenge each athlete to be a complete champion. And finally, Holy Lord, we pray for each and every Spartan athlete. In this unsettling, disorienting, and perhaps even discouraging season, may you lift them up in powerful and loving ways. Even now, may you grant them determination, commitment, resilience, and grace, and may they find abiding hope, peace, and love in the person and work of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I hope that you're able to learn more about Spartan Athletics, that God will indeed bless your generosity today. So thank you very much for being part of this event.
Thank you very much, Dr. Husbands. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today. So why are we here today? We are here to support students at Trinity Western, and for many of you, that's your local university or maybe your alma mater. We're here to raise money for Spartan Athletics, and ultimately we're here to impact lives. And in Spartan Athletics, we do that through something we call the Complete Champion approach. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a way for us to focus our intentional investment of resources so that we can strategically build into these athletes beyond just athletics. Like Dr. Husbands was saying, you'll see on the screen that there's 5 key areas that we focus on with the Complete Champion approach. And yes, of course, we want to be excellent at athletics and athletic endeavors and how we develop the athletes, but also we want to grow them personally, help them to explore their character and build character, to academically succeed and be at the top of their game. We also want to make sure that we are developing them spiritually and giving them opportunities to explore their faith and to explore ways to integrate that in all areas of their lives and to become leaders and provide them with leadership opportunities. And not just any leadership, but servant leadership. And that's a really big part of what we encourage athletes to do, is get involved in community service initiatives throughout the year, but also on missions trips with their teams. We encourage coaches to use sport as a platform to serve others, to help others, to reach others. And we really want our athletes to understand that there are so many people who've built into their lives, given of their time and their talents to help them get to where they are today. And it's now time for them to look at how they can give back, maybe to the younger generation that's coming behind them, maybe to those who are overseas and haven't had the opportunities that they may have had here in North America. So it's learning how to create a cycle of blessing, to pay it forward, and to look at ways to really be servant leaders in practical ways. And speaking of blessing, there's no way an event like this could happen without sponsors and partners. And we really want to thank our presenting sponsor today, Nicola Wealth. Thank you so much for your support and making today even possible. And Murray Nielsen from Nicola Wealth is here. He's got a special message for you, so let's take a look.
Hello, my name is Murray Nielsen, and our firm is called Nicola Wealth. And we are big supporters of Spartan because we believe in what you do. It's a little school. You punch above your weight in academics and sports, and we feel that students that have those qualities should be able to go and that money should not be an impediment. So that's why we give to Spartan. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our firm. Our firm is called Nicola Wealth. We are national but Vancouver-centric. We have an office in Toronto, an office in Richmond, an office in Kelowna, and we want to expand to the prairies and also to Alberta. And we work with business owners. We love working with people in the Fraser Valley, whether they be industrial or whether they be agricultural. We work with professionals, accountants, lawyers, doctors, dentists, people who have retired and have capital to invest. And we also work with people who have got money from a liquidity event. Now, a question that comes up during COVID is many people in that category are saying, am I going to be okay? So what we do to help them answer that question is we start by gathering all their data and working collaborative with their accountants. And we gather the data, put it into an encrypted vault, get them all organized. Then we write a plan which answers the question, am I going to be okay? After we've written the plan, then we look at how to invest their money. And where we're different is we think that part of the asset should be private and part of the asset should be public. So we have developed our own products. We have real estate products, private equity, farmland, alternative energy, private debt, etc. So that's what we're doing on the business side. This year we'll probably hit $7.5 billion, and we're very excited about our company's growth and where we're going. Now, another thing I'd like to talk about is philanthropy. The people in our firm feel very blessed and feel very grateful for how well it has gone for us. So we have formed a committee that has many people from our company in different segments called Nicola Gives Back. The company takes a percentage of profits, puts it into the fund, and the employees do payroll deduction. And employees come to us and they say, I have a cause, and we listen to their pitch, and then we fund them and get behind them for their cause. And it's really interesting that many of our employees show up at all these events that we do to be helpful. So we, this year, will give away $1 million, some to third world countries, some local, some regional, and that is pretty big for a little company like ours. So I wish you well with the Spartan event. We've been sponsoring it for years, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Murray. And again, that's Murray Nielsen from Nicola Wealth. And he and Debbie Preisel have just been awesome supporters, not only of this event, but of so many other events throughout the last year. So we just appreciate their support and thank you for your contributions. Now it's time to introduce our second guest, who will not be a stranger to many of you. His name is Steve Schultz. He's the Executive Director of the Spartan Foundation. And Steve has a long history with Spartan Athletics and Trinity Western University. He was a student here as well. He played on the Spartan men's soccer team. I think you can see a picture of him from the glory days on the screen. He stayed on as an intern in the athletics department, eventually became the Associate Director of Athletics for 16 years, and I was fortunate enough to work with him for many of those years and really enjoyed that. And in total, I think Steve has been with Trinity and Spartan Athletics involved in some way for over 34 years. So please join me in welcoming Steve Schultz. Steve, great to have you here. And wow, 34 years, that's a long time.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, it's great to be here. Wow.
Yeah,
great to be on campus too.
Awesome. I know, we're enjoying a beautiful day here. And for those people who don't really know about the Spartan Foundation or not too much about the foundation, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who the foundation is?
Yeah, we are a group of entrepreneurs, business leaders, parents of alumni, and just all around passionate supporters of Spartan Athletics. And so we just love being involved in investing in students. We want to enhance Spartan Athletics to get them to the next level. And we also just see sport as being such a powerful way of growing God's kingdom.
And it's been how many years now the Spartan Foundation's been around? Quite a few.
We're in our 12th year, and so time has flown. We celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and I'm excited to say that after 11 years, we raised $11 million. That's kind of as a team, as a group. That's the board, that's Spartan Athletics, the coaches, the players, and a lot of you. So we just want to say thank you to you all for your support over the years. It's been just a great journey so far.
Well, and I can speak firsthand that money has been such a blessing to us in terms of what we've been able to do and enhance as a department, and how teams have been able to enhance their programs to compete at the highest level in Canada of university sports. So we certainly appreciate your support as well. I know this event has been really key in raising a big chunk of that money. Maybe you can give us a little history of this event and how it's grown over the years.
Yeah, back in 2009 when we started, we said we got to come up with some anchor event that could be our big annual fundraiser. And we decided we would do a luncheon. A lot of schools do a breakfast. We decided we'd do a luncheon. We recruited Rick Hansen, and he was our first keynote, and it was an amazing event. He just hit a home run. People loved it, and so we just kept doing it. And if you take a look at the bar here, the bar graph, you can see that every year we've been able to grow it. And so we've just been really excited about the momentum and the growth of the event every year. And it's amazing because over the last 11 years, we've been able to raise $2.5 million just with this event alone.
That's incredible. And it's really fun for me to look at the graph and see the names of the lineup of amazing speakers we've had. I think I've been at every event, and I can just remember, from Ryan Walter to Martin Rennie, Anthony Calvillo, we had some Olympians. Marie Howe was such a really great person to meet, and John Scott was a lot of fun last year. So it's neat to reflect on the history there. But I noticed there's a pretty big spike in the middle, maybe in the 2015, 2016 era. Can you explain was that an amazing speech somebody made, or what happened there that bumped us up?
Yeah, that actually was fun. We just realized the power of the matching fund, and it really gave us some momentum, catapulted us to the next level. So the matching fund kind of gave us that extra jump and the boost that we needed. So thank you to all of you who have given to that matching fund over the years, and a special thank you to those that have given to the matching fund this year. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. And I know that our coaches have really been motivated by that matching fund, and the athletes as well, because when you know that every single dollar you raise is coming directly back to your program, and it's matched, why would you not go out and pound the pavement? And so it's really been a big incentive for these athletes and coaches. So we appreciate that match very much. So what's our goal for today, Steve?
Yeah, well, we are trying to grow every year. Last year with Big John Scott, we raised $542,000. So that was a big number. He felt quite a bit of pressure because the year before that, Marie Howe came in, helped us raise 507. So we hit that 500,000 mark. And so last year we were able to do 542. And this year our goal is 600,000. So I know it's a big goal. It's a stretch goal. We're just trusting that we have lots of generous people out there that can really see what's going on behind the scenes here and really support that. I know Shane and Leighann are going to probably feel a little bit of pressure because they're going to probably want to outdo Big John.
Well, they're athletes. They like pressure. They work well under pressure. So we'll leave it on their very capable shoulders. But I do hope that everyone remembers we're here for the students today. It really is a great cause. All the money supports these students directly. And thank you so much, Steve, for just taking some time to talk to us about the Spartan Foundation, and again, for your support over the years. We couldn't do it without the team behind the team, and it's just like wind in our sails. We really appreciate that support. So thank you.
Thank you.
And speaking of the students that we're here for today, it's time for us to hear a story from our current women's rugby player. Her name is Tasani Lavalli, and she's going to tell us how she ended up at Trinity Western University. Take a look.
Definitely came here simply because God called me to come here. God really just told me, no, you actually have to go to this school. I'm going to do something great here. Once I came here and once I saw the team and met Andy and heard the reason why other people were here and the timing of it all, it just became super clear that yes, God does want us to be here and that this is going to be a special rugby program.
However, a little over a year ago, Tassani Lavalley's story was different. She was a member of Canada's Rugby Sevens program and had earned time on the World Series. She had Olympic dreams. But things changed. She sidestepped in a way few others ever have. After winning a gold medal at the Pan American Games in 2019, she left the national sevens team and set her Olympic ambitions aside to help build a brand new women's rugby program at Trinity Western University.
It was a hard decision. It's a hard decision because I cared so much about what other people thought. I cared about how people would see me leaving that, and that maybe it was a sign of weakness or something like that. That's what I thought of initially. I was like, well, I can't leave. I've already said that this is what I'm doing. And I decided to surrender my life to God, and that I was going to let Him take control of where that was going to lead me. It was a bit of swallowing my pride and being like, hey, no, I'm doing this for God. He gave me these gifts. The moment I made that step to be like, no, I'm going to listen to God, He just had His way with it and just made things fall into place and surrounded me with a lot of peace. I think that rugby can be a form of worship. I really do believe that, because if our lives are going to be worship, as Christians, the way that we live, it honors God, and it brings praise to Him. So the way that we play rugby can as well. I think that so much of that has to do with how you treat people and the relationships that you have on the team, and then in result how that looks like when you play together against an opponent of sorts.
And on an early February afternoon, that opponent was the Calgary Dinos. Lavalley went viral.
Sonny's through the line. Yeah, she just needs supporters there. One defender's at the back. Yeah, step back into that thing. Oh, what a try.
I was just happy that I was wearing a Spartans jersey while doing that, and that through that try that we were bringing attention back there, that we can be an awesome team, and that this is a force to be reckoned with. Join the squad. I want us to be able to get to the point where we do things on instinct because of how well we know each other, and that we're able to build each other up because we're just going to support each other no matter what. I want us to be the best team, which means we have to have the best culture, and we have to truly love each other. And I want us to actually be a family of sorts. And yeah, I want to build strong female leaders to be able to lead in all aspects of their lives, and that we're living a life of love and pursuing a relationship with God, and we keep those relationships with each other strong and alive.
Thank you, Tassani. I always love hearing the different stories of how our athletes end up here at Trinity Western. It's always inspiring, and the stories keep coming. I wish we had more time to share more of them with you today, but hopefully you're inspired as you do hear the bits and pieces that we bring you today. Some of you may have received our program in the mail or maybe with your link today, and I just want to take time to thank our sponsors, because again, we couldn't do this event without our incredible support of our incredible sponsors. So special thanks to our diamond sponsors, GLC, The Exchange Project, and Janssen Insurance. From GLC, special thanks to Glenn and Joe Lewin, Josh Dornenball, Mark Howitson, and the whole GLC team. From Janssen Insurance, thank you to Andrew and Charlene Janssen. The Exchange Commercial Project, which is just down the road from the Langley Event Center on 86th Avenue. It's a new office retail space by the Bus Exchange. It's being built by Benchmark, and we just want to thank Jeff and Tim Bonkus. And moving on to our gold sponsors, Avasar, Benchmark Homes, Hyper Hippo, CAD Kitchen Art Design, Lawson Lundell, Lowen Cruz, Mirabelle Vineyards, Parkridge Homes, and Trading Post Brewing. Thank you so much. Our silver sponsors, Athletes in Action, Country Lumber, the Jagger Volcanut, Deloitte, Fastic Label, Field & Martin, Freedom Construction, Guardian Angel Consultants, and Sightlines Architecture. Thank you so much. Again, we couldn't do an event like this and do the things that we do without the incredible support that we have from all of you. So thank you very much. It's time to move on to our next guest. And again, I think he'll be familiar to many of you. His name is Jeff Gamache. He's the Director of Athletics here at Spartan Athletics. Jeff goes way back with Trinity Western and Spartans as well. He played on the men's volleyball team from 91 to 95. Pardon me. That's, did I get that right? I think I got that right. Then he moved on. He was an intern. He was men's volleyball coach, took some years off to do some teaching, and then has come back now. He's involved as the representative on the Spartan Foundation board for Spartan Athletics. And of course, he's the current athletic director. He's been in that role now for 4 years, and I'm enjoying working with him. So please join me in welcoming Jeff Gamache. Welcome here, Jeff. Good to see you sporting the Spartan there.
Spartan, always have been, always will be.
Well, I know we always like to talk about how we bleed blue and gold, and I know that that is something that speaks to you as well.
Absolutely.
Let's just get the elephant out of the room and talk about 2020. It has been a year like no other. It's a year that none of us would have expected or predicted or wanted. But just fill us in a little bit on how COVID-19 has changed things in Spartan Athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the short answer is it has changed absolutely everything, and yet in some ways it has changed nothing. So I'll go into detail on that for you. It's changed everything in that we do not have a league. We do not have a national championship. We are obviously not traveling nearly as far. Right now we can only travel within the Fraser Valley, Lower Mainland area. So that's significant. That's really different. Our venues have changed. We don't have access to the LEC in the same way for hockey, for rugby, for volleyball, for basketball. Those of you that are familiar with that facility, amazing team rooms, can't be in there. We can't have team meetings. Everything's on Zoom. We have no showers. So those people who are commuting, they come here. We have one shower on campus that all these commuters have to sign up for a time. So it has changed so many things, so many protocols, paperwork, everything, obviously, to keep people safe. And at the same time, it's changed not one bit our commitment to our athletes, our commitment to be the best that we can possibly be, to be the leader in just athletic excellence combined with a Christian perspective on sport. And we are unabashedly confident that we will continue to do that even in the midst of COVID. So in that sense, we're still committed to all the personal details that make Spartan Athletics amazing. Our coaches are developing incredible relationships. We're investing in the complete champion. We have new and different ways that we're doing that, but yeah, that part has definitely not changed.
Wow, that's a long list of changes, but I know Dr. Husbands referenced it as well, just that I think in a year like this where COVID has in a sense taken away a lot of those athletic pieces for us, because we're about more than just that athletic piece and we focus on all those other areas of the complete champion approach, we can still keep moving forward and it doesn't feel like we're stuck. It's frustrating, it's not ideal, but we're moving forward and it's exciting to see. And I know some people might look at that goal of still being so excellent, of being global leaders as a bit of a, Jeff, that's kind of a lofty goal. Like, do you really think that we can do that? What would you say to people who say that, maybe that's an unattainable goal for us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in kind of the big, hairy, audacious goal that Jim Collins talked about in Good to Great. And we've set that out there. We want to go after it. We've seen, as Dr. Husbands alluded to earlier, just incredible teamwork across the campus from our coaches, from our athletes. Everybody has stepped up to do it. And so we've been able to be leaders in a way that maybe we've never been leaders before. So we have been the first university athletic program to have its strength and conditioning space open up again after the pandemic and shut everything down. We were the first ones to have summer camps back and going. We were the first ones to have teams up and practicing, even though it was limited and it was individual skills. We were the first ones to be able to do that. We were the first ones competing against ourselves and then against local competition that we could get into. So just leading every step of the way, and people are calling me and saying, Jeff, how are you doing it? We're able to share our information and really encourage other schools within BC for sure to keep going with us. And so that's been awesome.
That is encouraging. Now, how about the athletes? I mean, we're all about the athletes. How are they handling this? When you talk to the athletes, what are the kind of things you're hearing from them? How are they coping?
I think first and foremost, I want to say they are incredibly thankful for what they have here. That has not been lost on them. There are many schools across Canada who have not been able to open a single facility. So we have lots to be thankful for. Having said that, it's a huge disappointment when you're a senior athlete, especially. That's who my heart really breaks for, is those athletes. Particularly, we have our men's hockey program who's built for so many years to enter into U Sport this year. Not able to do that for those senior athletes. The younger classmen, yes, they're going to have that opportunity in the coming years, right? But those senior athletes, that's tough. And it's tough for athletes, senior athletes on all of our teams who had visions of competing for Canada West Championships and national championships, and that simply is not going to take place this year. But to a person, when I've talked to them, you can see the pain, you can see the frustration, but they've all said, but you know what? We're not quitting. We have this saying in our department right now that what we do in the dark of this year is going to be revealed in the light coming up. And so you have to be able to take that perspective and still do the work. And they get up and they go to Sparta and they are showing up at their practices. And these are athletes who really, in many ways, lots of people say, what are you playing for? And they've asked themselves that question, but they're playing for their teammates. They're playing for the fact that they still know it's really healthy to be out and physically active. But they're here, they're for each other, they're not going to quit. That's not the Spartan way. And so I've just been so impressed.
That's awesome. And that's super encouraging. For people who might still look at it and say, but you're missing a big chunk with athletics. So why do we need this fundraiser this year? So maybe you can expand a little bit on why today is so important.
Yeah, I mean, the financial need has not disappeared. Absolutely not. We had to pivot really fast in June for our Complete Champion Challenge. We took a golf tournament in Calgary and made an online virtual event in the parking lot here at Trinity Western. Like it was crazy, but that's the kind of effort that we've seen go into this. Our costs have largely stayed the same. Salaries, scholarships, all of that has stayed the same. In fact, the need for scholarship has gone up because we have a new financial need amongst our athletes to the tune of more than $100,000 in increased need from last year to this year. Then we have just the increased costs of doing things with all the PPE that is needed, all the cleaning that is needed. We have the increased cost of travel. So anytime, even though we're not traveling as far, when we do travel, we need multiple vehicles to make that travel happen. If we are going to get to the point, and we certainly hope that we can get to the point after Christmas, of perhaps actually sending our teams for like just one night away, hotel costs are going to have increased because we can't put as many people into a hotel room. So lots of costs have increased. Some have stayed the same. Certainly the travel piece is not there, but yeah, it's just, we still definitely need the support. And one more thing I should add, we've decided to invest in the Complete Champion in even a deeper way than we have previously. And that's not to say that we weren't doing it well then, but it's given us the opportunity to say, all right, we're going to give people the opportunity to take financial planning courses. We had that last night. We're going to be able to have a marriage and healthy relationship seminar. All these things, they're innovative, but they cost money. Sometimes it's donated by a great alum who comes alongside, but often it's not, and we need to pay for those things. So.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear about the specifics of how we're expanding our investment into the Complete Champion approach. And I know that that's something that we've seen our staff put a lot of time and energy into this year. I just feel like that's a really good snapshot, as hard as it is to give a really quick snapshot of what's happening in Spartan Athletics. But hopefully for those of you who maybe have been an athlete before or just are wondering what does the world of athletics look like right now, it is very different, and hopefully this helps to give you a little idea of what that different looks like, and like I said earlier, why today is still so important. Jenny, last thoughts you want to leave with us here, Jeff?
Yeah, I just would love to say a huge thank you. Thank you to the Spartan Foundation. Thank you to all of you who have taken time from your day to tune in and watch. We know that we have alumni spread all over the world. And really, when you hear these stories of Tasani, and you're going to hear the story of Jake, these are snapshots. And like Julie said earlier, we could do 300 of these. There's so many incredible stories. And that's, to me, why this event is so key. Because you're investing in leaders who are then turning around, and not just when they're, like, you're going to hear Jake's story. It didn't just all happen at Trinity. It's happened afterwards. And we have alumni spread all over the world, from Rwanda to Ethiopia to Laos to all different parts of North America, all across Canada. And when each one of those athletes and alumni engage in their local community, they then exponentially impact the lives of so many more people. That's what gets me excited about this event, is that we are creating these leaders who are going out and just doing incredible work for the Lord in all the places that He's put them. And so thank you for being a part of that. It is not lost on us, the sacrifice that you have had to make in this year. Some of you have maybe had your best year that you've ever had. Many of you probably have taken a financial hit. So thank you just for your commitment to us, and just special blessing on you.
It is time for us to move on to our keynote speakers today. Thank you again, Jeff, for taking some time with us. And I know that you've spent quite a bit of time with our keynote speakers and have been getting to know them. We had a little time with our staff today, and it's really been enjoyable for me to sort of get to know virtually our guests. But I'm going to let you do the introductions here and take it away from here.
Sure. You're going to get introduced in this next segment to Shane and Leighann Doan Reimer. Brothers, sisters, both incredible athletes, unreal leaders, the kind of people that we would call complete champions here at Trinity Western. And they have invested in the lives of all kinds of people in their sport journey. So I've had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time interviewing them, getting to know them. So I think you're really going to be blessed. Leann's coming to us from Three Hills, my hometown, and Shane is coming from sunny Phoenix, Arizona. So enjoy. I think you're really going to find some great nuggets.
Born and raised in the small Albertan town of Halkirk, Alberta, both Shane Doan and sister Leighann Doan Reimer have put together remarkable careers in sport. Shane began his career as a right winger with the WHL's Kamloops Blazers and found immediate success, winning the Memorial Cup in back-to-back seasons in 1994 and 1995. His play caught the eye of the Winnipeg Jets, who drafted Shane 7th overall in the 1995 NHL entry draft. After 8 seasons in the NHL, including 7 in Phoenix, Shane was named the 6th captain of the Coyotes franchise in 2003. He would spend the remainder of his career with the Coyotes before retiring in 2017. Over his career, Shane played 1,540 games and amassed 402 goals, 570 assists for 902 points, all franchise records. He was an NHL All-Star in 2004 and 2009. He won the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, which recognizes leadership, in 2010, and was the winner of the Marc Messier Leadership Award in 2012. Shane represented Canada internationally across 8 tournaments in his career, including in the Olympic Games in 2006, and as captain of the World Championship team that won gold in Russia in 2007. Shane's number 19 jersey was retired by the Arizona Coyotes in 2019, becoming the first and only jersey retired by the Coyotes franchise. Dubbed the University of Calgary's greatest women's basketball player of all time, Leighann Doan Reimer's basketball career took her across the globe. After being named Athlete of the Year in her final 2 years in high school and winning 3 provincial championships, Leighann joined the University of Calgary Dinos in 1997, and that year was named the CIS Rookie of the Year. She followed that up with back-to-back CIS Women's Basketball MVPs in 2000 and 2001, and in her final season in 2001, she won a Canada West Championship and a CIS Bronze Medal, while also being named the CIS Athlete of the Year. She finished her career as the Dinos' all-time leading scorer with nearly 2,000 points. She was a 4-time first-team All-Canadian, a 4-time academic All-Canadian, and the City of Calgary's Athlete of the Year in 2000. Internationally, Leighann was captain of Canada's women's basketball team at the World University Games in Spain in 1999 and the torchbearer at the same competition 2 years later in China. She went on to play professionally in France from 2001 to 2004, as well as playing with Canada's women's national team. Leighann was inducted into the Calgary Dinos Hall of Fame in 2015 and into the Canada West Hall of Fame earlier this year.
Welcome here, everybody. We're just so excited to have Shane and Leighann Doan Reimer for Leighann visiting with us today, and we're going to be spending the next half hour talking about all kinds of things. But really, we're just excited to have both of you here. So thank you so much for taking of your time. Leighann, just tell us a little bit about where you're living right now and what you're doing with your days.
I'm currently living in Three Hills, Alberta, so very
Big
familiar
shout out.
song to you. I am a mother of 3 children. So my husband and I are raising 3 kids right now, all school age. Our oldest is in high school. So mother is a big part of my job right now. I'm a substitute teacher. So I work down the street at the 2 schools in town here, everywhere from kindergarten to grade 12. Any environment, I'll jump in there and teach. So large part of my week looks like that. And we own Subway restaurants, 3 of them. So I do the books in the office more than actually in there making sandwiches. But I have to get in and make sandwiches from time to time. So between Subway, being a mom, and substitute teacher, that's my life right now in Three Hills.
Awesome. Well, I was born and raised in Three Hills, and we did not have a Subway, so things have really improved in the town. So that's great to hear. Are you doing any coaching?
I will be. I'm hoping with this
Right.
COVID year that we're in. I'm a basketball coach, so volleyball has started. I don't know what basketball is going to look like. We're still crossing our fingers that we're going to have a season. But I coach my daughter now, so I'll move up to the high school team at the local school here. And yeah, really looking forward to that if it'll happen.
Awesome. Well, great to have you. All the best in your season, and let's hope you get one for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Shane, I think you're in Phoenix, but just tell us what's keeping you busy these days. I know the other day when we were talking, you were off to coaching, so that's one thing that's for sure going on. But
yeah, we stayed down here in Arizona. My wife and I. We have 4 kids. 2 of them are gone. My daughter's a senior in college, so she's 20. She'll be 22 here next month. Then I got a 18, a 16, and a 14, girl, boy, girl, so I knew they're just growing up and getting to be at home. I work for the league now as well, and so I get to do different parts of hockey ops for the league and stuff that when the bubble was going on, I got to be involved with helping set that up, and then I went to Toronto for the Situation Room and did stuff with that. But other than that, since that's kind of ended, we had a GM meeting the other night, a couple of days ago, and so it's all done on Zoom. So I get to be at home in Arizona, where it's about 85 degrees right now, really sunny, and perfect golf weather, and perfect weather to be outside. So it's a good spot to be stuck.
It's a great spot to be stuck. You know, like I said, born and raised in Three Hills, so special place in my heart for Three Hills, but I also have had the opportunity to be in Phoenix for golf and some Pro D events and other things. Great city. So that's awesome. Well, hey, I know from our conversations before, your family is an Alberta family, got roots in Halkirk, Alberta. So tell us a little bit about that. You grew up at Circle Square Ranch, and your mom and dad, very influential in both your lives, obviously, but just fill us in on what it was like to grow up in, a small prairie town, some of the things that you learned there that have translated into your lives later on in life. Leighann, I'll let you go first.
All right, growing up in Halkirk, yeah, it's a booming town. We lived at Circle Square Ranch on the kids' camp, so Halkirk was the closest town. But as you can imagine, growing up at a children's camp is like the ideal place that you could possibly grow up as a kid. You got to do all the activities and be a part of so many people, so many different people's lives. For me, the biggest thing with that, we got to play games all summer long with people at camp. And in a small town, you don't have a lot of other things going on, so that's what we did. And we got to compete at games we loved, to get in there and play the physical games. So I think for me, part of that was being able to be a part of that at a young age. I just grew up with it, playing against older kids, good exercise, being outside, and just enjoying being able to compete. And then the Christian side of that spiritually, you get to meet lots of different people, and just that environment of anybody that came in, we tried to welcome them with open arms. And I know that has affected my life now, that I grew up in that environment. And we kind of joke sometimes that, are we the only normal people that come to Circle Square Ranch? Maybe we're not. Maybe everybody's a little different, but just that environment of being welcoming. And I watched that in our parents, and I know that has affected me still.
Yeah, and I can imagine too, just in terms of we get into debates in the world of sport, multi-sport athlete versus, really focusing early. And from talking to you both, like there was no such thing as like focusing too early. Like you were doing everything all the time. Like you weren't too worried about that. So has that influenced you, either of you today, in terms of with your own kids? Do you encourage them to stay multi-sport because of some of that, the way that you grew up?
Oh, absolutely. I would say the more sports you can play, the variety, that's just going to make you a better athlete overall. Coordination of different parts of your body. I would tell my kids, get out there and do every activity. And the burnout doesn't happen because you're ready to play the next sport in the next season. And I see that with some of the younger athletes. They've played basketball 10 months of the year. So when they might get a month break or something, when it comes back time to play again, I think they'd rather go play another sport for a little bit and regain that motivation to play. So I am a strong supporter of multi-sport athletes. Yeah.
And I can't get over the mental side of multi-sport athletes. Like, you develop a completely different outlook. If you play baseball, your anticipation of, as you're playing for a hockey player, so you don't really have to anticipate the next play the same way as you do as a baseball player. Where if you're playing second, you got a runner on second, I got to hold them for a second and then throw it to first. And you have to have that in your mind before the pitch comes. And so you're preparing yourself to anticipate the play. And I think that mental side, not just a physical side of learning to run, like playing basketball, running and dribbling, or playing baseball with using your power to hit, or whatever it is, it adds so much more and develops so many more muscles. I think that's why most of the guys that are isolated in one sport tend to have a lot more injuries, from my personal experience, because they've overdeveloped certain muscles, and you have to develop your whole frame in order to be really successful and last, I think.
Yeah, no, good point. So your parents, both incredible people, incredible story about how they came to Circle Square, very influential in your life. Can you kind of highlight a couple things for each of you? I'm guessing they'll be different, of just what an impact your parents had on you and some of the life lessons. Thankfully, they're both still with you. They still live in Halkirk and everything like that. But how have they impacted you? What have been some of the life lessons that they've taught you that have stayed with you?
For me, I can't even begin to explain how much my dad and my mom both impacted me in my daily life as a parent, but also in my daily approach to the way that I played the game. And their whole thing was the heart of a servant. They kind of had the heart of a servant and they had servant leadership, and it was never about them. And they really tried to instill that in us. For me, that was probably the biggest thing that they continually harped on, was it's just not about you. It's like your job is to make the people that come to the ranch have the best time that they could possibly have. What could you do to make their time better? And it could be as simple as making sure the bathrooms are clean, or making sure that the horse they were riding was a good horse, or making sure that everything that they needed was taken care of. And that attitude of serving others and never ever not being at work. It was a 24/7 thing. Like, it's not like when you're on a camp, it's like, oh, I'm going to punch the clock. I'll be there at 9 o'clock and I'll come home at 5, and that's it. It was 2:30 in the morning. The water's not working. We're heading over to the barn to fix something, or to the pump house. I mean, the pump house, Dad lived at that pump house. And that was probably the two biggest things. And one of my dad's favorite lines was, if you enjoy working hard, every day's a holiday. So make sure that every day's a holiday and enjoy it. So, and those are the things that stuck with me, I think, for my entire career.
Awesome. Leighann, you want to add anything to that?
I think the example Mom and Dad said of the unconditional love, being a part of the camp, and anybody that came there was welcome. And like Shane said, they do anything to just make it special for that day or for the week or the weekend. So that unconditional love is still an example in their life right now. They run into people literally all over the world previous to COVID, and they know people everywhere, and they just want to love them. And the people that see them again are so happy to see them because they remember mom and dad as these people that just cared for them all the time. And that example of unconditional love really sticks with me. And right now, my dad has a sign at home that has every word that could possibly be associated with family, like unconditional love, acceptance, anything that goes with family. And it seems like often when we get together with the grandchildren and all of us as a family, Dad's always reminding them that they are a part of our family and nothing can take that away, that identity that we have within our family. And he instilled that in Shane and I right from the beginning, how important it was and we were part of our family and how we were unconditionally loved. And I see them teaching our children that now, wanting them to know no matter what, this is a safe place within our family. And I saw that in our family and I saw it in the bigger picture of the ranch, that that's what they wanted, was that identity of unconditional love.
Yeah, well, it's so powerful when it's lived out for you day in and day out. So would love to meet them someday. I've just heard nothing but good things from Barrett, our hockey coach, about them, and then obviously from you guys as well. So part of being raised by your mom and dad and at the camp was the whole faith component. And I'm sure when you were younger, it was maybe a bit more about their faith than your faith, but talk to us about kind of when did your Christian faith really become your own, and how did you begin to really own that yourself? Shane, I'll start with you.
Well, for me, I mean, I was very confident in my faith because it didn't really seem like it was something. It was just something that who I was. I made an early commitment to Christ, and I had a understanding for the most part of in my head of what that meant and what the truths that went along with it, and it really helped me a lot. And then it probably wasn't until I was probably in my really early in my 20s that I recognized that it wasn't that I wasn't saved and I wasn't believing in what God said was real or anything like that. It wasn't like I was questioning my faith, but there were some things in my life that I needed to deal with and some things that I needed to recognize that I could see was going to cause a lot of problems in my life and was going to cause a lot of pain and a lot of heartache for people around me. And I had to kind of end to myself. And I had to kind of, I guess, come to a realization like either I'm in or I'm out. And it wasn't whether or not I was saved. That wasn't it. It was whether or not I was going to be a man of character and someone that was honest and truthful. And so I'd say when I was about 20, 21, I recognized that some things had to be changed and I had to make some personal and difficult decisions and deal with that. And so I'd say it was probably around that time that I think that I began to really own my faith for me personally. And like you said, prior to, it was probably, we lived a fairly sheltered life living on the ranch, and my parents were incredible, godly people that were an example for me, but I needed to kind of understand that either I was going to change or I was going to pay the price for some of my decisions. And I'm very grateful for God's grace, and because of that, it was something that you have to do daily, and I still have to do. But I think that's probably about the time that I really recognized that, okay, I can see what's coming down the pipe here, and I got to fix that.
Right. Leighann, how about for you?
I think as I get older, when I look back on my faith journey, more and more I'm aware of the fact that I am where I am by the grace of God. And same thing that Shane said, by the grace of God, he was guiding and leading us. And when I left home at 17 years old, we had been in this bit of a spiritual bubble. And going off to university, leaving small town Halkirk to move into the city of Calgary into university and all that comes with university life, I realized then when I hit some hardship in being physically tired with this new environment I was playing in and emotionally, spiritually exhausted, that I had to make a choice then. Being on my own, am I going to find a church that's going to feed me? Am I going to surround myself with people that are going to feed me spiritually, or am I going to choose to do this on my own now that I have the freedom to do it? So I would say the biggest decision was at that age of about 17 or 18 at the University of Calgary. And I'm thankful that I had people around me that I made the right choice. And I stayed involved with Athletes in Action, which I think was a big part of it at 17 years old. Pull those athletes in with the same morals and the same beliefs and the same guidance in their life and going in the same direction and good leadership in that. At a young age, I made that decision and just chose to make it my own and continue what Mom and Dad had put into us, and recognizing, hey, this isn't just something that works because you live at Circle Square Ranch. These principles work every day of my life, no matter where I'm at.
And how did both of you find it in terms of being on teams? Were you often maybe the only Christian on the team, or one of a very few Christians on the team? And how did that play out for you in terms of opportunities to talk about your faith? Was it more people coming and asking you questions based off of just the life choices that you're making? What did that look like? Maybe I'll start with you, Leighann, on that one.
Often I felt like, yes, I was one of the only Christians on the team. But again, like Shane said, I was very confident in who I was. And I'm thankful I made that decision early on to walk in that direction. But I was never a very vocal person about my faith, especially in my first few years, just trying to figure out what life looks like on a university team and being a part of a group of girls that I don't really know that well yet. And so I felt like I just walked my life like I knew that I should, and tried to walk it the right way. Yes, I made mistakes and none of us are perfect, but in talking with Shane about this over the years, kind of just walking alongside people, and when they start to trust you and realize that you care about them as a person, conversation then can happen, and you get to be able to speak into their life and to be able to say, hey, I'm not telling you this because I think you're wrong or you're bad. I just care about you, and I think this is a good principle that would be good for your life. And just walk alongside them, let them observe how I was living, not always perfect. And that sometimes is actually a good thing for them to see. Look, we make mistakes too, but humbly say, yeah, I made a mistake and I know better, but you start all over again. And letting somebody walk beside you and being a part of a life like that, where they can just trust you in that, and let your actions speak louder than your words sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true, so powerful. The ability to be able to identify you're going through the same kind of things, being a teammate, you have the same pressures that are coming from different places, and then for you to walk it out. And as you say, it is often much more powerful when we are authentic and real with who we are. And I think, Shane, getting back to your point earlier, I think when you were 20, 21 there and were authentic and real, which was very hard. I remember you saying, like, having to go and talk to some people who didn't really know this piece of you, and you didn't really want them to know that piece of you. But then through that, it sounds like that actually was a very pivotal moment in people being able to identify maybe more with you. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
100%. Like what Leighann said is so true. I was comfortable. I'm still to this day comfortable, and I love talking to people and getting to know people's story. And I think that that's so important. And I was always, there's that balance of being like, man, I've made so many mistakes. I've done so many things that my teammates or my friends would have seen that that isn't exactly godly. And I was always afraid that I'd be viewed as a hypocrite if I wasn't just authentic about, you know what, I made a mistake. I needed to acknowledge that. And I can't get over how many times when I talk to somebody that they wouldn't really remember the mistakes I would make, but they would remember the conversations that we had about just being honest. And I was like, but you know that I've done this, and you know that I've made this mistake. And they wouldn't really, that wasn't the issue. It was the fact that I'd come alongside somebody and be like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Yeah, I've kind of been there. And it's going to be hard, and there's going to be some things that are tough, but that willingness to just be vulnerable and honest, I think convinces people that you care way more about them as a person. And when they really believe that it's not just like I'm trying to convince you that I care about you as a person, but I truly do care about you as a person, that people want to open up and be honest with you. And for me, that was something that was so important with just being a Christian athlete. Was I'm going to try to be as honest as I can in every situation. And if you want my opinion on something, I'd give it to you. But for the most part, I'm just going to try to walk with you and not walk with you, just be around and be real, and not judge anybody, because I knew that there's enough areas in my own life that I didn't want anyone judging. And then just give and love people. And Leighann talked about the unconditional love of our parents, and obviously it's biblical. That was probably what made it easy for me to kind of be, and I was often the only Christian hockey player. Hockey wasn't exactly right full of Christian hockey players at the time. I clung to Mike Gartner and Laurie Boschman like you wouldn't believe when I was younger. And now you start to see it, and those guys kind of paved the way for a lot of us.
Right. So I'm guessing this relationship piece, this walking alongside, this authenticity, you're both incredible leaders. Both have been captains on multiple teams at the highest levels. Talk to us about leadership. We have a lot of people that will be listening to this who are leaders in a business or in other sporting contexts. So would just love to get some of your insights on what you've learned growing up about leadership, but then what you learned even in your careers and what you're applying now as leaders in the different spots God has you right now. Leighann, I'll let you go first on that one.
Well, I think part of that always comes back to the example we had with Mom and Dad, that they were natural leaders at the ranch, and the environment we grew up in, we just did what needed to be done whenever it needed to be done. And I think that can be applied to every part of leadership, whether it's sport or corporate. If your leaders are willing to do whatever needs to be done to better the team, your team is going to be successful. If a leader's sitting there thinking, I'm at the top, you take care of the rest of it, you're probably not going to have success in that. And that example of Mom and Dad, like Shane mentioned earlier, from cleaning bathrooms to dealing with the directors across Canada, whatever needed to be done, they led as an example in that. And Shane and I watched that all of our life growing up. And I think I came into sport confident in who I was as a person, confident as an athlete, and I, being a bit of a people pleaser, I wanted to do what was right. So I followed what the coach said. I tried to do the little things because I knew that was something that needed to be done. And when I look at it now as a coach, who am I going to pick as the captain on my team? I watch those girls that can mix with every group on the team. They're not just the popular one or the best player, but they mix with every person on the team so that they can pull together everyone. They're doing the little details that are being asked, whether they're asked or not. They're leading by example. It's not a all about me mindset. It's a team mindset. Again, the bigger picture, what is best for the team. And I think as leaders, the opportunity to lead from that perspective where how can I make things better for the team, that takes you a long ways.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I don't know if either of you have read the book on the All Blacks called Legacy, and they have
unbelievable
an idea kind of sweep the shed. And so exactly what you're talking about, right? Where the leaders are the ones that go in first, they're the ones that leave last. They make sure that down to the tape being picked up off the floor is happening. So that's awesome. Shane, what would you add to the leadership conversation?
Just that, like what you said, that is an unbelievable book, and I love that book. And that is, leaders are the people. Someone had defined it one time to me, and it's for business. It's kind of I think for everything. Is leaders know what needs to be done, they know how to do it, and then they know what it's going to take to get it done. Those are kind of the three things that you want in your leadership. And what needs to be done is you got to find, what's the goal? What are we trying to head towards? how are we going to do that, and what needs to be done or what it's going to take to get that done. And it really comes down to putting the team first. If you can understand that, and like you said, where your leaders, I've found that the best leaders, and you and I we talked earlier, Jeff, about how one of the fundamentals of teams that have been successful is that they have servant leadership. And Leighann and I, the example of our parents was servant leadership, but I think that's an example of really, it seems that every great leader that's had any real influence and had the effect that you want is a servant leader that elevates the people around them. And their goal is if you can approach your day as anyone that comes into my life is going to have a better day because I was in their life, man, you start to get people following that, and you can really accomplish a lot because everyone is just lifting each other up. And that falls right back to what Leighann said about mom and dad, and the example that was set for us. But for me, one of the coolest things is I got to play with Mario Lemieux, and watching somebody that never once drew attention to himself, and yet the whole room was watching him. I don't know how else to explain it. He never one time tried to draw the attention to himself, but his presence and who he was, everyone watched him. And it was easy to see a room full of so-called alpha males just kind of follow behind this guy that, I mean, he's special and amazing, and you can't even say enough great things about him. But watching him as a leader was pretty special.
Well, my next question was gonna be, you kind of beat me to it, because I was gonna say, so you've both been around some phenomenal people, and I know you each would point out the other to be the greatest athlete that you've already been. We already established that Shane believes fully that his sister is by far the greatest athlete that he has ever met. Male, female, any sport. He's like, basically, Leighann could have just taken any sport. She happened to find basketball. So that is firmly established. There's no arguing that. But other than Mario Lemieux, for either of you, is there anyone else that kind of combined that? They had talent, but it wasn't just the talent. It was the talent. It was the effort. It was the discipline. It was their ability to lead. Is there anyone else that you kind of like, wow, yeah, that they were very inspirational that way. They made an impact.
Well, I was lucky. I had 3 captains in the NHL. So my first captain was Chris King, who had a huge impact on. I don't think I've been around somebody that kind of was the glue of the room more. Like, he made sure everyone knew everyone was involved. He took care of me. I was only 18, and he took care of me, made sure I had, which was amazing to see. Then I had Keith Tkachuk as a leader, and Keith is like this bigger than life personality, and brash, and borderline bully. Like, he's just, but at the same time has the personality to pull it off, and everyone loved him, and yet was just monstrous and huge as a personality. So those 2 guys were special. But the guy that I think was really the guy that I admired so much was Teppo Numminen. And I don't know if there's a more, he was so dedicated to the process, and yet not caught up in the surrounding stuff. He knew what he had to do to be good. And so he would just focus so closely on what he had to do next to be better, that you'd watch him, and it was like he was robotic at times, but he was just so gracious and classy in the way that he did it, it was hard to explain. And Leighann, and you're right, I will say Leighann is the greatest. I know you said it already, and I'm not even trying to be funny. Nope. She is truly the greatest athlete that if she was a man and had a desire, every single person in the world would know her name. She's that athletic. But anyways, Teppo had that kind of same thing that Leighann has, where he was so monotonous about his preparation for a game that you just sat and watched, and I was amazed by him. He had the skinniest arms you've ever seen. Like, they're like toothpicks. I'm not kidding. My 14-year-old son has bigger arms than Teppo Numminen had. And it was like, we always joked that if anyone figured that out, he would get killed out on the ice. But he just was so good. And I just, such a classy man. I could go on and on about Teppo Numminen.
That's great. That's a name that I don't hear necessarily come up. So I love that. Yeah, I've seen it where the often captains, I don't know if you knew this, but like the Brazil national soccer team, Pele was never their captain. They wouldn't actually let their leading scorers and stuff be the captains because they just felt like that was their role to do that, but it wasn't the role to be the captain. So they very intentionally would pick other people to be the captains who were servant leaders who just knew their role, would take on any role. And so that fits right in there. I love it. Leighann, you want to add anyone in there other than your brother?
Yes, I would say what he has said and about the same thing about him. And Shane's incredible, but I'll save that for later. One of the girls I played with in Europe when I was in France, so a name that nobody would, some of the people that follow the WNBA would know her, but Annette Jacobson, she was a year or two younger than me, and going into Europe and watching players develop their game in a totally different style. So coming from a Canadian or a North American style of basketball is totally different than European or Asia. And watching her, just the purest shooter that you could ever watch, just perfect technique, smooth, beautiful to watch as a shooter. But again, not this natural born athlete that walked into the gym thinking, oh, she's going to be somebody that I better pay attention to. Just look normal, ordinary girl. But she grew up in a basketball family and had perfected the technique of shooting and just quietly did her thing. And she would shoot and shoot and shoot and be the last one to leave the gym. Didn't really draw a lot of attention to herself in any other way, whether it's at practice or at the game, but had perfected the technique. And to me, it was really cool to watch that. I'd never seen that before in Canada in that way. And she went on to play about 10 years in the WNBA after that and had a great career at it. And I would never have picked that the first time seeing her. And she just had a mindset to be the best. And even when she was a great shooter, she was the last one in the gym still shooting and perfecting that every day.
Right, that dedication. That's awesome. Well, hey, we're going to wind this up here. We're going to get into one last question, but you both have had incredible careers, thankfully been spared, for the most part, significant injury, which is a big piece of having a great career. So very thankful for that. But there's been some difficult times, whether it was injury, whether it was, not maybe making it onto a team when you thought you maybe should have. How did you handle that? How do you handle adversity? Because that's just part of the human experience, is that we all get dealt adversity at some point along the way. And so share with us some wisdom to do with that as we kind of close things down today.
Want to go?
Sure. Without a doubt, I have to stop and say, where would I be without my faith? So from a young age, faith was a part of that, dealing with adversity. Shane and I talked about this earlier. It's still part of our life, dealing with everything right now, that daily connection with my faith and with God every day, like a reset on life. Today I need to start all over again. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday or what I think is going to happen tomorrow. It's a reset on life today, and it'll get me through that moment. And I did have some rough times going through with a national team where I maybe disagreed with some decisions that were made, or experiences that I had were not what I thought they were going to be. And as a Christian, I was able to say, hey, there's a plan bigger than this. If this is the way it's going to be, I had a dream to be an Olympian, and I was so close. We were on the team. I was on the team that did not qualify to go to the Olympics. Had we qualified, I would have gone to the Olympics with the team. And I was driven by that dream to be an Olympian, and it didn't happen. And I remember thinking, okay, God, now what do you have? I had been driven by that dream. Now you've changed it. And that decision didn't happen overnight to just accept that. But there was a piece in saying, there's a bigger picture to this, and I can trust that. And it's out of my hands, and being able to have freedom in that.
Thank you. Shane?
Yeah, that's what Leighann says is so good. I think one of the things that I've kind of tried to approach my life with more and more, and I mean, obviously, like Leighann said, it's a daily thing, is that if I don't, and it sounds too simple, if I don't have any expectations, and it sounds like that's almost bad, but I'm grateful just for anything that I have.
Yeah.
It seems that I do better. And it's not because I always struggle and laugh about the guys that will always say like, well, I've worked for hard enough, or I've earned this, or I've done this. And man, when I look through my life, I don't deserve or haven't earned anything. It's all been kind of given to me. And if I can really understand all that I've been given, then when I start to suffer or things go not the way that I want, it seems that it helps me. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but I really have tried to fall back on that thought process and it's easy because I do have a really good life. I had a great career. I have an amazing wife. I have an amazing kids. I have, I've had kind of everything that was supposedly that you want. And yet I have some awful days because none of that stuff really, in the grand scheme of things, matters as much as we want it to matter. Like you can't say that there's anything that you'd really want more than what I've been given. And yet I still have awful days. And that's the time when I recognize that I got to be part of a bigger story than just myself, and that it's not about me. And if it's not about me, then when everything goes sideways, I got to focus on others. I got to focus on the bigger story. And if I can do that, then I can somehow get through the day where I want to just curl up in my bed and feel sorry for myself because this isn't what I had in mind and this isn't the plan that I had made for myself. And the second I start talking like that to myself, I seem to have a harder time. But when I'm like, you know what? It's not about me. How am I going to fall back on the things that I've been taught about everybody else? Let's just make it today, I just want to make someone else's day better. It seems to help me, even though I struggle with that daily. And when you come across me, I'm probably struggling with it that day. I'm probably not doing a good job of it that day, but I know it's the truth and I know that it's right. I just got to try to get to that spot. And that's, I guess, why we do it daily. Like Leighann said, it's a daily thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, this has been such an honor, such a pleasure to just have gleaned some wisdom from two people who have done sport and done life and walked it out as just two fine Christian examples and have really been role models for many, many people. And so thank you for sharing of your time. So appreciate it. Just wish you all the best in Three Hills and in Phoenix, and would love, if you're ever up in this area, would love to connect with both of you. And my chances of getting to Three Hills are a little better with COVID right now than Phoenix. Although I would have said Phoenix rather than Three Hills.
Yeah.
But, anyway, thank you both.
Thank you so much, Shane and Leighann. I just love the little leadership nuggets you've left with us, the life skills that you've taught us. I appreciate that, and your stories are really encouraging to hear. Time to hear where we've got people tuning in from today. It's a really great mix. Derek and Madison Kirchner, a couple of our alums, Spartan alums from Edmonton, Alberta. Mark and Geraldine Jurgenite in Muskoka. Sarah and Aaron Betcher, more alums in Langley. Jeff and Sarah Lynn Stell, Delia, Alberta volleyball alums. The Fontaine family from Humboldt. Paul and Tanya LaBelle, Saskatchewan. Lance Verhoeven, Fort Langley, another alum. Mark and Heather Friesen out on Vancouver Island. And all the way from Switzerland, the Matthews family. Please say hi to Silas. Oh, it's just so fun to have this greater family watching us, and we hope that, thank you for letting us in your living room. We're enjoying our stay. You've heard from one of our current athletes. Now it's time to hear from one of our alums. This is a men's hockey alum. He's going to tell us his story, and his name is Jake Harkoff.
I wasn't really close to God when I was at Trinity. I didn't really have any intentions of becoming a Christian or digging into Christianity anymore. It was just somewhere where I could play hockey.
Jake Harkoff graduated from Trinity Western University in 2015 having played with the Spartans men's hockey team for 3 years. It's been 5 years since he left the Langley-based school, and now he's a completely different person. In the fall of 2018, 3 years after graduating, Harkov moved to London to pursue his master's in strength and conditioning at Middlesex University. However, just a few months later, in the spring of 2019, he had to come home.
I didn't know how sick my dad was. He didn't really tell anybody because he wanted me to go to school. You know, it was always my dad's biggest goal in life was to have me be successful. And I ended up spending the entire month with him in the hospital as he deteriorated more and more. And he passed away at the end of April. After he passed away, my girlfriend at the time came to live with me in London for a little bit. And she ended up getting pregnant. Unfortunately, we ended up losing the baby as well. We were just about 11 weeks into the pregnancy when we lost the baby. Meanwhile, my mom wasn't handling the loss of my dad very well, and our relationship was getting strained, as well as the relationship that she had with my girlfriend, and which inevitably, in a long roundabout way, ended up causing the relationship to come to an end. So we're talking in a span of 6 months. I lost my dad, lost a baby, lost the love of my life. Like, you know, I was gonna marry this girl. You know, it was just one thing after the other. I felt like I was just taking shot after shot. You know, it was either I keep going or I don't at that point. It was really, I was ready to hurt myself. You know, maybe I came to prayer and came to Jesus for selfish reasons because things weren't going well for me. But, you know, I realized through, you know, studying it and reading the Bible and going through different programs at the church that no matter what, God will welcome you back with open arms. And I feel like he did. Maybe, you know, these awful things that happened to me were actually God's way of propelling me forward, closing certain doors for me and opening others. And every time something happened to me, or every time something bad was going on, I just thought, I can handle this because God never gives me more than I can handle.
A year and a half after his dad passed away, a longtime dream came to fruition. Harkov opened a gym. With the support of a few people who believed in his vision, and with his dad's legacy guiding his path, Harkov launched AIM Athletic in Langley.
My dad is complete inspiration. All of my work ethic that I have today, I get from my dad. He worked so hard, and I just try to be successful and somebody in life who would make him proud. And that's kind of what I work towards now.
5 years out, he looks back on his time with the Spartans men's hockey team.
I don't think I was ready for God back then. I don't think I was in a situation where I could handle a relationship with Christ. But through the experiences that I've had along the way in the last few years, I think it's put me in a position to actually dig into the relationship I have with God and come back to him in a way that allows me to foster the relationship rather than fight it. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for developing that relationship with God. I don't know, so I guess the future for me is just being that, you know, that shepherd or that person that can help somebody else find freedom or comfort in their lives. Because one thing I learned through therapy is that I'm not the only person going through this stuff. There's a lot of other people that are going through it out there, and sometimes they need somebody to, you know, give them that same message that somebody gave me.
Wow, thank you so much, Jake, for sharing your story. That's not easy, but I think your story is going to have a lot of impact even today with everybody who's tuning in. You've heard from two of our alums, or one of our students and one of our alums today. We have two more alums who'd like to bring you a special message. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. We want to say hello and welcome from the Spartan Foundation Board. I'm sitting here with Doris, and I'm Mark Friesen, and we are on the Spartan Foundation Board. And so happy to be with you guys today, having heard from Shane and Jake
and Leighann,
and all the other people that are helping make today such an impactful and important day. We are so excited to be hosting this event, and wanted to share some of the important elements of today from the board's perspective. And the reason why we do this, as you guys have all heard, we are here to raise money for our important athletes. And we've all gone through a very exciting 2020 so far, and our athletes need our support now more than ever. And Jake was a great example of that, wasn't he?
Incredible. So, Mark, I think this is a really special event for you too, right? Because hockey has a little bit of a, for you?
It is, yeah. You know, I was Jake back in the day, and I'd like to think that Shane kind of followed in my footsteps a little bit. You know, I'm from Winnipeg, and he chose to go and play there for a little while, so I see the connection already. But, you know, back to the reason we're here.
Yeah.
Yes, hockey had a huge impact in my life, and playing at Trinity was fantastic. I met a lot of lifelong friends, which I still have today, and the lessons and all the education that went with it was really impactful in my life.
And that's why you're on the board, right? Is you want to give back.
I want to give back in any and every way I can, and you know, we all have our different gifts, and I'm lucky enough, like yourself, to be living close to the school, and we can participate in these sorts of things. But you know, there's other ways to give, and today we're talking about the financial aspect, and we have a wonderful program today where there's a matching fund, and all the money that's being raised today will be matched up until 9 p.m. tomorrow night, which is a very generous offer this year. So that's exciting. And you know, how great was Jake's story?
I know. I mean, that's why the board, that's why the foundation exists, is so we want to help every Jake. We don't want to leave any Jakes out. Like Jake said it so well. There are students here this year that might not be able to be here without a scholarship. And so the foundation is there to help bridge that gap and to help the coaches too. Those athletes at Trinity, they aim high. Everybody is in there for the complete champion experience. And that's what Jake experienced, and that's what we want to ensure happens as the Spartan Foundation Board. And I love the generosity that's already been demonstrated with the matching gift.
That's right.
And just imagine, we have more people attending today than we have ever attended a reception. This is our 12th reception, and we've got people right across the country. I have a secret dream, but I'm a dreamer. I always have a big dream, but I have a dream what we might actually end up with realizing out of today. But I think this could be the biggest fundraising event that the Spartan Foundation has ever done for Trinity Western athletes. I honestly believe that generous spirit that is pervasive right now all over the planet. People want to be on a winning team, and they want hope, and that's what these athletes give. That's what the coaches give, is they give us hope, not just about today, but that's what you do every day. That's when you leave the gym or you walk across that stage and you go out into life. That's what Nat is doing. She left the soccer pitch, and now she's out there in the community as a leader, and people are following her. And that's what we heard today from Shane. We need leaders. We need leaders. Won't go too deep into that right now, but we do need leaders, and Trinity Western is all about developing leaders, and the Complete Champion program develops the whole leader. So
whether you're sitting in your swimming trunks or your hockey gear or in your snowsuit or somewhere else where you're watching the Zoom, we challenge you guys to come out with your pocketbooks and help support all the students at Trinity Western University. Help us help their dreams come true.
And add an extra zero. If you were going to give, whatever you were going to give, stretch it. Give an extra. Put a zero on the end of that. Another zero on the end of that. And let's blow this event out of the water. And can you imagine crossing the finish line, and what a triumphant thing that would be for Shane and Leighann to have been part of this and get us into 2021 just as winners. Like, I think we can do it.
Well said. Well, thanks everyone. And from the board, have a great day.
Thank you, Doris and Mark and the whole Spartan Foundation. We really appreciate you. You are the team behind the team. And if you haven't figured it out yet, those are our biggest cheerleaders. And it is just awesome. The team behind the team, like I said earlier, it's a real win that just propels us forward. So we thank you so much. If after all you've seen and heard today, you feel like you'd like to give, we've tried to make it really easy. On the screen, you'll see there's 6 different ways that you can give. And we'll put this slide up again at the very end. But again, thank you in advance for all of your donations and your support. We couldn't do it without you, and we hope that you've enjoyed what we brought to you today. And that really wraps up today's edition of Spartan Sports Center. Thank you so much to our sponsors, to our donors, to all of you watching out there in TV land. We just appreciate you so much and appreciate your support. We hope that next year we can see you all live and in person instead of just virtually. But again, thanks for being here and taking time. We hope you stay safe and go Spartans.